Oh, brother.
All right.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome to Jeep Sheep TV. Today we're playing with a mini bike built by my friend Ben. Now Ben, this mini bike isn't something you can just buy off the shelf the way it sits right now. What have you done to this thing?
Well, it came as a Coleman CT200U EX. So anyway, I basically just put on a Predator 212 after intentionally blowing up the Hisun 196 that came on it. And I've since put on a Mikuni carburetor and a very short header, as well as a CVT kit, which is called the TAV, stands for torque averter. Yeah, anyway, it's been a blast. I've gotten it up to 46. Not that I recommend that, because it only has one rear brake.
Ooh.
And it's a drum. And I'm 50 pounds exceeding the weight limit of the bike already.
So you're in for a lot of fun regardless.
Right, yeah.
So what we're doing today is we've got out the GM Diagnostic Tune-Up Center, which has the ability to read air-to-fuel ratio, and we're just going to double check that the carburetor is running where it should be and tune it to Ben's liking. And I got the Jeep over here because that test center or tune-up center also runs on a car battery. So we don't have a car battery on the bike, so we're running off the Jeep and having a good time. We're also using a Harbor Freight digital photo sensor tachometer, and we're using that to see what the RPM is, because this bike doesn't have a tachometer built into it either. Anyway, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get started, and we'll show you how these tools work and what we're doing with them.
This is an over-dramatized version of how you would do this. This here is a photo tachometer, and so it works by, you know, just shining a light on this reflective strip, and it allows you to know how many RPMs that you're turning at. Then, so what you're supposed to do is get the engine to its stock original RPM, and that's done partially with this screw, which is idle speed, but it also opens up and closes the stock height of the slide in here, since it's Mikuni style carb. And so what you want to do is get the engine to that right speed, and then there is a fuel screw under here, which is often misinterpreted as an air screw, which it's not, because it's facing the engine. So it works opposite as an air screw. You tighten it inwards and it gets leaner of a mixture. You turn it outwards if it's on this side, and you're making the mixture more rich. And it would be the opposite if that screw was on this side of the carburetor. So that's about it. We're tuning for a good air-fuel ratio, 14.7 or as close as we can get to that, and a good idle speed out of it too, which is a little less than recommended, but I want it to idle a little slower.
Okay, you guys, Ben mentioned something about this tachometer here, and he pointed to this reflective tape. Something that we're doing that is kind of a tip, I guess I can give you guys, is this tachometer, what it does is it's going to be shining a light onto whatever's spinning, and then what is reflected back is what it's measuring. So the reflective tape is designed to be more reflective than your surface, and so it's going to be measuring that. Now, being that this is a shiny surface, we've been finding that it won't measure this at all unless you can cast a little bit of shade on there and keep it from reflecting off the metal, and the more reflective tape is then going to reflect that light. So that's, I guess that's one tip we got, is to stand in the sun. If you're not seeing any results at all, it's because your environment's too bright and you're reflecting all over the place. The other tool that we're using today is this Diagnostic Tune-Up Center. I've got a couple other videos on this bad boy here, kind of explaining what it is and what's going on in here. I'm really learning as we go with this, because I got it for free and I'm just kind of playing with it. But what we've got here in this category is we have an air-fuel ratio option, and we're just going to turn to number 4. and then it illuminates where you're supposed to look, and so it's going to show us that we're right at calibrate. And that was mentioned down here. There's a little screw. You turn that in open air, and that's going to calibrate it to this CAL or calibrate position. So this is open air, and when we run the bike, we should see it move from that position, ideally, and respond to the burnt fuel that's then coming out of that exhaust, and it's going to give you an air-fuel ratio, as the ratio of air to fuel should be changed by the combustion process. Now, what this is all connected to is there's this little red box down here, and this is just a vacuum pump is all it really is, and then it's got the device inside to measure the oxygen levels. Now, when I start this up, the vacuum pump's going to run, and that's going to be sucking air through this tube here. When we calibrate, we're in open air as right now, but then when we run it, we're actually going to stick this in the exhaust. I'd say like about an inch at most.
Since it's such a short pipe.
Yeah, this is a very short pipe, and we've actually had issues where we're melting our hose when it's running. So we're only going about an inch. If you go less than that, we're seeing that it's getting biased by too much fresh air. And so this seems to be working for this setup. And we got a clamp in there because this guy rattles all over the place, and it'll fall out of the hole. So last thing before we get started and do a demonstration for you is you'll see that the bike's on jack stands, because he said this is a CVT. So once we get to a certain RPM, it's going to start spinning that rear wheel. And so we got that guy off the ground so we can do these tests and we can run it a little bit higher RPM, which really isn't for tuning the carburetor. It's more for us just to kind of see how that guy responds to that guy. Okay, you guys, so what you just saw there was you saw this responding to this. Now, when he was pulsing the throttle, it really jumped more towards that rich, and that makes a lot of sense to us because the carburetor is going to work on different air pressures, right? So as you're opening that throttle plate, you're changing the vacuum pressure, which is then going to suck different amounts of fuel. As you pulse that, it's going to react in a little bit more of an aggressive way as than if you were to be a little bit more gentle. And we saw that on here. When he pulsed the throttle, it pulled a lot more fuel. When he went to the same RPM with a more gentle hand, it pulled a little bit less. And so that's one way that we're kind of verifying that this guy's working. Also, you saw a very direct response between the two. So I think this has been a success in proving that this old machine works and that this new one is running roughly where you'd like it to run.
Yeah.
So why don't we do one more demonstration where we show the RPM and how we're measuring that, and then maybe we'll ride it around.
Okay.
Cool.